Something was off with Oppenheimer, and it wasn't just the more than shocking scenes of Florence Pugh. The problem lies deep with Oppenheimer, and symptoms of this can be seen in other recent Nolan films. The reason why Nolan's newer films feel emptier than their predecessors are because they lack family values at the heart of the story. But let's first harshly critique this overpraised film that feels like a Nolan mimicry rather than his magnum opus, and then compare it to Inception and see why one of his older films is far superior to Oppenheimer. This feels like Nolan's cigarette film, like he was reading American Prometheus and whipped up a script that felt comfortable and easy for him. And you can definitely feel it. Nolan doesn't usually employ the tactics of cameo bait like the MCU, but this film is so chock full, it's distracting. It's constantly like, oh, there's Josh Peck, oh, there's the guy from Sky High, oh, there's Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, oh, there's Huey from The Boys, and so much more. And we're supposed to think these actors are scientific geniuses? For someone who changed Batman's origin story to keep the viewer immersed, this seems like a lazy marketing stunt from Nolan. And don't get me started on Florence Pugh's character. From putting family values at the heart of the story to adding nudity scenes just for shock value, Nolan has definitely changed. He had the winning formula and decided to exchange the focus on family to lust for character development. And to make it worse, the scenes really add nothing to Oppenheimer's character development. 2 days later in the story, and Oppenheimer becomes sad for just a little bit. And there isn't even enough dialogue to develop any sort of real love between the two of them. She's just a romantic outsider, a distraction for Oppenheimer that doesn't lead to any real consequences. For a movie that's 3 hours long, it's annoying that you don't really know anything about his long-lost, crazy girlfriend. It would have made more sense to show the abundance of affairs he had throughout his life. Oppenheimer was like a celebrity during his time. He had the level of affairs that are on par with JFK's. It would have been smarter and more impactful to convey the impact of his affairs on his family life. This leads to my second point. Nolan almost completely ignored Oppenheimer's family life. This movie is so chock full with physicist technobabble that the characters you only really know besides Oppenheimer are Lewis Strauss. Emily Blunt's character is largely ignored throughout the course of the story. Her performance comes off as confusing, as sometimes she plays a mother who can't take care of her children, and other times she plays a necessary maternal force of the household. And we don't even see Oppenheimer interact with his children. Is he a family man, or is he an absent father? I'll have to read the book to know. There is so much missing information about Oppenheimer in a movie called Oppenheimer. Also, we should know how Oppenheimer's promiscuity affects his wife. We only get 1 or 2 disappointed looks during the course of the interrogations, and an incredulous Emily Blunt when he's crying outside after Tatlock's death. But besides that, there's no real consequences. Oppenheimer's inner family life is an enigma. Oddly, I know more about how Cobb acts towards his family in Inception, and that movie isn't even called Cobb. Because of this, Oppenheimer's character is quite confusing. The movie is so focused on his moral qualms with the creation of the bomb that we don't know if Oppenheimer is a bad guy, a good guy, or even a combination of the two. His character resides in this gray area just because of the lack of interaction he has with his family. This is why I have no urge to rewatch Oppenheimer. The heart of the movie is missing, and no family values or family interaction are anywhere to be seen. Whew. And now let's take a look at the far superior masterpiece, the film that was inspired by an Edgar Allan Poe poem. A score so iconic that it single-handedly rose Hans Zimmer to prominence. And Leonardo DiCaprio gives debatably the best performance of his career. But this is not what makes this my most rewatched film of all time. It's Cobb trying to reconnect with his children. It's the eternal longing to see his kids, but he's deprived of it by his wife's sins. The world thinks he's a monster who killed his wife, but he's really just a father who misses his children. The most brilliant aspect of this film is that Cobb will let himself see his children's faces while he's dreaming, for fear that he might think they're real. It's not until the end, in Nolan's most satisfying conclusion, that he finally sees his kids turn around, with their faces finally revealed. But that's not the only part of the movie that utilizes family values. The whole mission of the team revolves around incepting the strong emotion of reconciliation between a father and son. In the setup part of the movie, we see Tom Hardy's character observe the tumultuous relationship between Fisher Sr. and Fisher Jr. As Fisher Jr.'s father is dying, it can be observed that his father was perhaps disappointed in the outcome of his son. So the team debates on incepting a negative emotion into Fisher's head, so he will perhaps break up his father's company as a quote-unquote
"screw you" to the old man.
But they realize catharsis or reconciliation, a positive emotion, is so much stronger than any negative emotion. The plot is a literal psyop, or twisting of positive emotions, so Robert Fisher sells his father's company. So, at two fundamental levels of the story, we have character motivations and the plot intertwined with family values. This allows the movie to connect with us on a much more personal level, as we at some point probably experienced some version of these core emotions. And it makes the characters vastly more interesting and complex to know that they're just as flawed as us. This is why the climax of the movie hits so hard. Let's watch it. And why the ending hits even harder. After much scrutiny and critique, this is undoubtedly Nolan's magnum opus. He doesn't attempt to change the definition of what makes a movie great like his later films. Instead, he pushes the formula to its limits by putting family values in multiple layers of this movie, along with some cool sci-fi elements. This begs the question, is this a symptom of the departure from strong family values in Hollywood? Please think about it.